Good evening. Okay. Good evening. I'm Councillor Joe Hickson, Chairman of Climate Transition Corporate Environmental Services Policy Advisory Committee. Pleased to welcome you to the meeting. The meeting will be broadcast live and recorded for playback on the Council's YouTube channel. Will anyone else be recording the proceedings? No? Okay, cool. I ask so that people at the meeting will know if this will be happening. If the fire alarm sounds during the meeting, please remain seated and members of Democratic Services team will assess the situation and give further instructions on the evacuation of the building if necessary. So moving on to item 1, apologies. So we've got an apology from Councillor Jenkins Baldock. Are there any other apologies? No. Item 2, substitute members. Are there any substitute members?
Councillor Cleater for Councillor Jenkins Baldock, who's got COVID, so apologies.
Oh well, we wish her a speedy recovery. Item 3, urgent items. There are no urgent items on today's agenda. Item 4, are there any visiting members? No. Item 5, are there any disclosures by members or officers? No. Okay. Are there any disclosures of lobbying? No. Item 7, I move that all items be taken in public. Is that agreed? Thank you. Item 8, minutes of the meeting held on the 1st of October. This is pages 1 to 5 in your packs. Are there any comments on the accuracy of the minutes? No? Okay, then I move that the minutes of the meeting held on the 1st of October 2024 be approved as a correct record and signed. Is that agreed? Thank you. Item 9, forward plan. So are there any comments on the forward plan? Do Cabinet members wish to make any comments?
I think Councillor Summersgill might want to comment on the forward plan. I'm happy to if he doesn't.
So Councillor Summersgill, is he?
Yep. Hang on. Can you hear okay on that?
Yep. Perfect. Yep. Thank you.
The item for the Mason House has unfortunately been held over, and we'd like to move that to the first pack after Christmas in order to get an appropriate document to the pack, rather than try to rush something together for the one in December.
Okay, thank you.
That's my point. Thank you.
Councillor Cleater.
Can I ask what the delay is, please? I mean, only because it's happened in another pack where a report hasn't been ready, and actually this is leading to a bunching up of agenda items. So if I could have an explanation as to why it's been delayed, please, that would be useful.
Yes, we're having to look at details of how we go forward, given the prices that came in on the tender exercise, and we'd like to have time to understand where we can go with that project. I don't know if Councillor Jeffrey has any point to make.
Yeah, I mean, so in essence, absolutely. So as we know, the decarb plan that we had has been, I think the phrase is paused, but we are going to have to rethink exactly what we can do within the scope of the funding that we have potentially available, and that requires a little bit more work than we can manage in the the 3 weeks we've got between now and December. I'm absolutely, and we are absolutely committed to doing what we can to decarbonise that building. So we are not delaying this. It will not be kicked into the long grass, I can assure you.
Based on that response, does that mean we lose the grant? Was it 3.1 million?
Yes, we will be losing the grant.
Councillor Gooch.
Yeah, I'm really disappointed to hear that, because funnily enough, I know that I've missed one of these meetings, but I'm pretty sure that we'd agreed in the budget. We knew that there was going to be all this extra cost, but we needed to speculate to get the gains from it. And I'm really concerned that we're risking losing that grant, because that in effect means that we're going to have to find that 3 million, and surely any delay can't justify that. I'm really not happy.
So that's why we need to look at some of the options. There is no way we can deliver the work. The tender has come back far in excess of our budget, and therefore we cannot afford to do the work that has been specified. The cost of materials, everybody is cladding basically, so the cost of doing that is subject to market forces. Everybody wants their buildings cladding. We are bidding against a very difficult market, and therefore we cannot. We've got the costs have come back far in excess of what even the doubling of the estimate that we saw in the summer. So we simply don't have the budget to do it. Hence, we want to work out what we can do, because there are some straightforward wins, and we can revisit this once the cladding market settles down a little bit. But at the moment, we simply can't do it. And of course, there will be funds for future grants that we will be able to bid against. So the Salix funding that we had is not stopping, it is continuing into the future. So we will be looking at getting further money to cover that.
So forgive me, Chairman. So you're telling me it's not the end of the world, it's a setback, and there would be further opportunity to get grant funding, hopefully.
Well, absolutely. And you can imagine we are very committed to decarbonisation. Absolutely.
That's what I thought.
I'm not going to let this rest, but the route we've gone down is problematic for a matter of timing, probably more than everything else. So we are going to have to regroup, replan, and do it at a slightly later stage.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Jeffrey, can I just confirm then that we can spend the money that's in the grant on less things? So it's not dependent on us delivering the entirety of what was originally planned?
Unfortunately, it is requiring that we spend it on, to get the grants, we have to spend it on the project that we've planned. So we can't spend it on half the project, for example.
Are there any other comments or questions from the committee? Councillor Clayton?
Sorry, just so it was only allocated to the decarbonisation of Maidstone House. We couldn't, for example, use it to make the... What's the sound coming from? Yeah. We couldn't, for example, use it on making, I don't know, the leisure centre more energy efficient. It's just for that particular.
Yeah, when the Salix funding, it was what was called round 3, and that had a specified criteria against which we were given the grant, and it had a specified time zone in which the project had to be completed. In that sense, the funding is ring-fenced. It's allocated to a particular purpose, which was, and very specifically against the decarb of Maidstone House. So you can't shift it to another project. But as Councillor Jeffrey said, Salix are actually coming out with additional rounds of funding. There's one we would have had to respond on by next week, just not feasible in the timeline. Actually, sometimes taking a bit of a cold towel approach on these processes is worthwhile. And I liken it to, like, imagine you're in a town and you're just about to buy the most expensive house at the peak of the pricing market. You know, everyone around you would be questioning your sanity. Well, this is similar to that in that we know the price of cladding is sort of like up here. You know, the availability of the people who are qualified to put it in is down here. Actually, we need to look and see what is the better environment and go back in for Salix funding where we can get the benefit of the scheme at more rational pricing than is available in the market today. just to pick up on what Councillor Jeffrey also said, that doesn't mean that we can't look at other aspects. Instead of doing the whole of Maidstone House, there are other aspects that we can do. So Mark and his team, Mark Green and his team, are working through exactly what can be done, and that's the paper that's going to come back to the PACs in January. So what elements of the work in Maidstone House can we do and should we do right now, rather than doing the whole thing?
With the budget that we've got allocated, sorry, Chair, with the budget that we've already allocated, which was our bit to, yeah, okay.
Are there any other comments or questions from the committee? No? Okay, thank you. Apologies. Item 10, Council Tax Reduction Scheme 25-26. This is going to be introduced by Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm going to give a brief introduction and then ask Zoe Kent, who's the officer responsible, to go into further detail. So the Council Tax Support Scheme changed to a banded scheme in April 21, and what that means is there's sort of like relevant bands of income into which, you know, various sort of discretion and the support scheme fits into. So what this has meant is that working age claimants now have less or fewer changes to the amount of council tax they have to pay. So as their earnings move around, it doesn't mean that they're swinging from one band to another so often. And only earnings, not benefits, are taken into account. Anybody who isn't working receives the maximum amount of support, which is 80%. This brings savings to the council because of fewer adjustments. There's less time, officer time spent administering the system, and fewer reminders being issued as a result. The banded scheme is now in its third year, and it's felt that the scheme is working well. We are not recommending any major changes to this scheme at this time. To make the scheme more generous would become a burden on the council financially, and also as a result on the council taxpayers of Maidstone. The costs of the scheme in section 2.3 have increased compared with the previous years. And the reason for that is the increase in expenditure takes into account the council tax percentage increases. So each time we take it up by however many percent or point whatever of percentage, then actually the costs go up as well. It also may mean that claimants are now earning less or working fewer hours. That's another reason which can contribute to the cost. The minimum amount that working age claimants have to pay presently is 20%, and that's also comparable with most districts in Kent. We've done that benchmarking. And then to ensure that claimants stay in the same band and their support isn't reduced, it's recommended that the grid amounts in Table 1 are increased by the Department of Work and Pensions annual uprating increase. Thank you.
Thank you. Zoe?
Thank you, Chair. That was very well explained, Councillor Cox. As Councillor Cox explained, we're going with the same scheme, or we're suggesting the same scheme that we've had in place for the last 3 years. Administratively, it works well for the council, and benefit claimants seem to be understanding how the scheme works and aren't having to report so many changes to us. Most of the information we receive now is automated and comes in from the Department from Work and Pensions. We will look at the scheme. I will discuss it with Mark Green over the next 6 months, because the amount of customers going over to Universal Credit will change up until, well, everyone will move over up until December 2025. So we will look at whether we need to review it at all. And we welcome any questions.
Thank you, Zoe. Can I just ask you first of all to explain where the money comes from in terms of from central government, and whether or not we get any uplifts or any support ourselves as a council to do this?
Yes, so up until 2013, it was fully funded by the government. For the next few years, we were partly funded by the government through the revenue support grants. We now get no revenue support grant. I'm correct on that? No, we get no revenue support grant, and so it's fully funded. So by Maidstone Borough Council and the major preceptors. So around 70% of the cost of the scheme is funded by Kent County Council, then 10% by us, 10% by the police, and about 5% by Kent Fire and Rescue. So it's fully funded by the council taxpayer.
Thank you. Councillor Peter.
Just a couple of points of clarification. And are KCC going to carry on funding it to the 70% in light of their financial issues? And just a point of clarification for me, I understand about passported maximum universal credit. I take it that 2, 3, 4 and 5 are about maybe those low wage people who get a top up from UC.
So your first point on Kent County Council, they have to fund it. It's within the council tax base. So when Mark's team work out the council tax base, that is built into it. We send the figures over to the county council and the police and fire, and they work out their tax bases on it. If we decide to change our scheme, we have to consult on it, and we have to consult with the major preceptors on the scheme. So that's how that part of the funding works. Your second question, sorry, remind me again.
Yeah, so obviously you have passported benefits,
yes,
which is the old ESA, job seekers allowance and that, and those who are on maximum universal credit, which are those who have transferred over. But you do have excuse me, working people who can be topped up by UC. I'm just checking that like band 2, 3, 4 and 5, they fit into those bands.
Yes, so if it's passported, you're in band 1, but anyone earning, it's just topped up. Yeah.
Are there any other questions or comments from the committee? Councillor Gooch.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the report. I'm glad to see the system working, because I can remember when we brought it in. It took a lot of thought then, and actually it's proved to do what you wanted it to do. It's simpler, it's workable, it's clearer, and best of all, I'm pleased to see that we've had good feedback from citizens' advice. So I think it's more or less hitting the spot that it needs to spot. So at this moment in time, I see no reasons to make any changes to it at all, and I would recommend as per the papers, really. If there's a seconder.
We'll come to that, sorry.
Okay.
Councillor Conyard, turn your name around.
Can't see who it is.
Thank you, Chair. I was seconding the motion.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've been asked to do 3 things, which kind of cover what was being proposed and seconded there. So number 1, to note the progress of the income banded scheme. Is that agreed? Thank you. Number 2, to consider recommending to the council that the scheme's outcomes continue with principles of the existing scheme and the percentage awards, maximum award of 80%, continue for 2025-26. Is that agreed? And to consider recommending to the council that the grid amounts be amended in line with the DWP annual percentage increase of welfare benefits for 25-26. Is that agreed? Thank you. Okay, that's the last item on the agenda. So thank you very much, everybody. I now declare the meeting closed.